in this hour. This was a moment that to me, it just felt like a test for all of us.
How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we're going to talk about Jim Acosta and CNN yet again. Yes, this is still in the news. Yes, this still is a story. And before we get into the reason why it's being brought back up today, let me explain a little bit about what's going on here. Give you a little bit of background in case you don't know. Now, I think about 2 weeks ago or so, maybe last week, there was a very intense exchange between Jim Acosta and Donald Trump, and also between Jim Acosta and the White House intern. Donald Trump was saying, hey, you've asked a bunch of questions. Let go of the mic. Let somebody else get the mic. You're talking way too much. You're trying to argue. Jim Acosta did not want to do it. He had the microphone. He was holding on to it. The intern comes to get the microphone from him to give it to the next person that needed to ask questions and have them answered by Trump. And he was refusing. He kind of gave her a karate chop right there on her arm to prevent her from taking the microphone. Because of that incident and the general trolling nature by Jim Acosta, Donald Trump and the administration had his press pass revoked. CNN sued him and the administration. They sued Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Secret Service itself, and a bunch of other people to get the press pass reinstated. A federal judge, Timothy Kelly, who, by the way, Donald Trump appointed, agreed with CNN and then gave Jim Acosta his press pass back, at least temporarily. Now, in the lawsuit from CNN, they were talking about First Amendment rights being violated, which, of course, is a freedom of speech, freedom of the press. And they also talked about the Fifth Amendment, which was that the administration have violated Jim Acosta's right to due process, which is really interesting because they were reporting on the whole Me Too scandals, and a lot of that is no due process. But for now, I digress. The judge agreed with CNN, but not on the whole thing. Some news outlets have been erroneously reporting that he said that there was a violation of the free speech, a violation of the freedom of the press. That's not what happened. He only agreed with a violation of the Fifth Amendment, which is due process, not freedom of speech. Because if you said this is violation of freedom of speech, freedom of the press, that means, in my mind, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. You guys let me know in the comments. But if he was to set that precedent, then anybody who claims to be a journalist could get a press pass because you can't violate the freedom of press. Therefore, all members of the press are entitled a press pass. That is not what happened. He just said that there was a violation of due process. Now, I did not know you needed to have due process to have your press pass revoked. I thought it was like working at a job. I've been fired before, and there was no due process involved. They said, okay, come on to the office, Mr. Logan. Today's your last day. Sayonara. Don't come back. Checks in the mail. That's pretty much how that goes. Ain't no due process. They could fire you for whatever. It's different in different states, but there's no talking about due process there. But that was a ruling, and it's temporary. Now, I don't know what the actual result is going to be here. Maybe they're going to try to countersue or appeal it or do something to prevent Jim Acosta from having his press pass. Or maybe they won't call on him, or maybe they would just not have these press conferences anymore.
If they don't listen to the rules and regulations, we'll end up back in court and we'll win. But more importantly, we'll just leave. And then you won't be very happy because we do get good ratings.
So because of Jim Acosta, CNN, also Fox News, I was really ashamed of Fox News. The president, I forget his name, but I'll put information about that in the box. They, at least the Fox News organization, not necessarily the anchors, but Fox News came out and supported CNN, talking about, oh, we got to protect this. This is about journalists. It ain't about just CNN, this, that, and the third. So they came out, supported CNN. CNN is claiming victory. You got Jim Acosta out here. He's parading around like a peacock, becoming the news. And that was the whole point from the very beginning. Jim Acosta wants to be the news. This is why he's up there grandstanding, acting the fool, not giving the microphone up when it needs to be given up to get to the next person. People are talking about Donald Trump is somehow suppressing the voice of the press. He's silencing the press, trying to censor journalists. Not at all. If anything, or if anybody is guilty of that, it would be Jim Acosta himself. You're in this press corps. You got like 100 people in there trying to get their questions out and answered by the president, and you're holding it up. You're asking a bunch of questions. You're taking time away from somebody else. You got your colleague standing up right next to you, waiting for the microphone to ask his questions. Meanwhile, you're hogging the mic. So Trump is like, okay, that's enough. Sit down, pass the mic, give it up. You don't want to do it. You, Jim Acosta, are suppressing the press. You, Jim Acosta, are not allowing people to get their voices out. You are not allowing other people to have their voices heard. You are not allowing these important questions, at least to the reporters, to be answered by the president because you're hogging up all the time. Your press pass most certainly should have been revoked 100%. And hopefully it continues to be revoked after an appeal or whatever they're going to do to fix the situation. And as far as the judge, I don't know too much about him. I think his name is Timothy Kelly. Yeah, I don't know too much about him. All I know is that according to CNBC, Donald Trump did appoint him. Maybe that was a mistake. I don't know. Maybe he's compromised. I can't really call it, but whatever happens, I just know this is not the right ruling here. People on Twitter are celebrating. A lot of liberals are celebrating, but it's going to be a short-lived thing. I don't think that Trump's going to call on this guy, and they may not even have Trump too much more for these press conferences. It'll end up being what the reporters don't want. Your Fox News and other places that have supported CNN may end up regretting it, because what if they don't have Trump for these press conferences anymore? That press conference that happened, well, I think that was on, last week, about 8, 9, 10 days ago. That press conference was humongous for ratings. What if they can't have that anymore? Now they're going to suffer, and they're going to end up turning on Jim Acosta, in my opinion. I think most people in that press room don't like him. They know he's rude. They know he's boorish. They know he has no decorum. And that's what Trump was saying. He was like, look, I'm all for the freedom of the press. I'm all for freedom of speech, but you can't be getting up there, asking a bunch of questions, being rude, not relinquishing the microphone when you're asked to, not sitting down. You got to have some kind of decorum. It's very simple. CNN was trying to defend Jim Acosta. Of course, that's their employer. Brian Stelter and some other lady was on there talking about, well, it's not even about his decorum. It's about the law, this, that, and the third. So they know Jim Acosta is being this way. They know it. And they're pretty much flaunting it in front of you. It's like, yeah, we could do whatever we want, you know, and we're still going to have him in there being a troll. I mean, surely CNN could find somebody else to be there. They had April Ryan right there. April Ryan is a contributor to CNN. She works for some kind of podunk radio station, urban radio or something like that. But she's also a CNN contributor, and she's in there asking questions in the White House. All she got to do is just officially work for CNN as a contributor rather than that podunk station she's with, and then it's all solved. You don't have to have Jim Acosta in there. Jim Acosta is an irritant. He is a troll. He is somebody that I just really don't like, and I wish that he would go away. So what do you think? Do you think the judge, Timothy Kelly, got it wrong here? What do you think is going to be the result of this? Is there going to be an appeal? Will Trump call on, not necessarily Trump, but will Sarah Huckabee Sanders or anybody that's in the White House, will they call on Jim Acosta? Will they answer his questions? Since when could a judge tell the president what he has to do as far as who he allows in the White House and who he doesn't? Because that's what it boils down to. You are giving this guy a press pass, which allows him entry into a particular space of the White House. That's crazy. That's why I think the First Amendment was not ruled on, because like I said, if you say that the First Amendment was violated here by not allowing freedom of the press, then anybody who's a journalist can get a press pass and you can't deny them or ever suspend it. And then one more thing before I close, due process. What would that be in this situation? I mean, like, is it going to be an investigation? I mean, and what requirements would there be for your press pass to be revoked or to be kept? That's what I want to know, because you're talking about due process as far as a crime. What you got to have? You got to have proof of evidence. You got to have maybe witnesses, a weapon, or something that says that you did it, that you committed a certain crime. You can't just be locked up, you know, and sentenced without the due process. You know, you're innocent until proven guilty. In this case, there's no crime that's being alleged. It's just that this person is behaving poorly. That's not necessarily a crime. The whole karate chop thing on the young lady's arm, that could be a crime, but I don't think it'll really go anywhere because it was pretty mild. But the whole point is that there's not necessarily a crime that's committed. It's about this guy behaving as a troll and needing to be removed from the White House so the whole thing can go well for all the other people that are in there that represent the press as well. And that's pretty much it. So whatever your comments are, please let me know in the comments.